Hey guys, and welcome to the Pixel Gurus podcast. We recently changed our name from what was the Sharkcast before to call the Pixel Gurus. There was an issue with there being a couple other names of a podcast called the Sharkcast, and we feel like this really better encompasses what we're trying to do here as far as reviewing games, talking about anything with just gaming, I guess. So today we're actually doing something special. We're going to be discussing a game called Shroud of the Avatar and really deep diving everything that we've experienced so far with playing it. It's made by Richard Garriott, or as you might know him, Lord British, along with Starlong. Both of them worked on the Ultima Online game. Tabula Rasa also isn't something else they worked on. I think I'm saying that correctly. But we're going to go ahead and get into that here in a second. First, let me go and introduce everyone that's here with me today. Obviously, Horse is here as always. How are you doing today, Horse?
Doing pretty good, pretty good.
We've also got another friend of mine, Ant. How are you doing today, Ant?
Doing all right.
And we've got Synthel
Hey there.
and Agua.
Hello.
So before we actually get into that, we're going to do a little bit of news really quick, something that I think is really important to address whenever you're doing something like this. So kind of keep everyone in the know, maybe give some opinions and things like that with stuff that's happening. So something if you want to go ahead and discuss some of the stuff that's in the news right now with us.
Well, big in the news is Blizzard just turned 25 years old.
Mazel tov.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. Mazel tov indeed. Um, the division is catering to consoles now.
Yep.
Surprise.
I actually typed that to him so that he can go ahead and read it off, and I wanted him to read it off in that way because it's something that really irks me when games do this, and something that I'm sure all of us in this room have actually discussed before in the past. When someone makes a game, it's going to be multi-platform. Obviously, there's going to be issues PS4 to Xbox One, and what hardware limitations there might be. But with something like console to PC, there shouldn't be any issues. I mean, it's probably being made on a PC if I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying that. And so the abilities of a PC are far superior to that of a console. So why they would, not only cater to consoles, which generally does happen, but why they would hold a game back when being brought to multi-platforms on a thing like PC, where it again has a lot more power, has a lot more potential, really annoys me. Do you have anything to say about this, Horse?
Well, just that it's been seen numerous times with various different games, and like even I think GTA 5 was probably one of the biggest names that went through it recently. It got pushed back quite a ways, and the public could have got its hands on it a lot sooner, and people would have been a lot happier. And not only that, but I think a lot of people could have had maybe some insight into the game before going out and purchasing it for themselves on either console or PC, whichever one that was being released later. And I think it would have saved some people a lot of headache, and it kind of gets under my skin because I think they do that on purpose so that people can't really get their hands on it and see, yeah, maybe it's not the game that I want. Makes them spend a little more money.
Ant, anything to say?
Yeah, they kind of did the same thing with Watch Dogs. It may not have been cross-platform or whatnot. I couldn't play with Xbox people to PS4 people to PC people in that sense, but the game itself was degraded severely. For consoles. Like they were displaying this beautiful game, and then when it came out, it was not what they had shown at E3. Basically, it's like why do you do this to us?
Agua?
Just constant headache.
Yeah, I think it's just a tease sometimes. I don't really understand why they do it.
What else we got, Synth?
Well, your saint and almost I would say God, Todd Howard got the Game Developers Choice Lifetime Achievement Award.
And Todd we trust. I think definitely deserved with the resume, I guess you would call it, he has in game creation, the amazing projects he's worked on, and all the innovations he's brought to the table with stuff like that. I think it's definitely well deserved. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing, guys. Talking about Shroud of the Avatar. First of all, we just want to kind of do like a general overview of the game. It's an MMORPG, obviously, in the vein of Ultima Online, with a much updated graphical looking game with 3D. I would say it's kind of along the lines of a true, not cartoonish in my opinion. It has a little bit of cartoonishness, obviously, but not as much as say like a WoW or a WildStar does. They do seem to try to have a sense of realism to the picture they're trying to paint. I'm filling with words here for once.
It's got a lot
Um,
more medieval feel to it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem as cartoonish, which cartoonish isn't necessarily bad, but I do like to see games that really do try to have, as Ann said, the actual true medieval look to a game. Something I can really appreciate. You have dungeons, you have some PvP there as well. All the basic elements for this game are there. Everything you're going to look for. It is an early access right now to buy into the game. I believe it's still $45. It was, I think yesterday when I double checked it to make sure to actually get into the game right now and start playing it. They have static housing, so you don't have to worry about instance stuff, which instance for me is always very annoying. I don't prefer that. I like to be able to actually see people's houses and see neighborhoods and communities growing and thriving in an actual game world. It adds a sense of realism for me and immersion. Um, that's pretty much a good idea of what the game is about. Obviously, we're going to expand upon that as we go through this. Synthel, is there anything you want to talk about as far as general stuff that maybe I haven't covered?
Well, kind of covered everything at the moment. The crafting was really interesting, but the game definitely does look very well. It looks great, actually. I have to play it on low settings because of my computer, but when I had it on full settings, I love the look of it. It did speak truly to a medieval look and didn't go overboard or miss the key.
So, what you're saying here, obviously, with the graphics, so let's go ahead and lead into that next, which is going to be um, well, let's back up first because we really want to talk about where the direction of the game is going. So, Horse, if you want to go ahead and just kind of paint us a picture of the direction of this game, things to expect in the upcoming 6 months to a year, or whatever their time frame is exactly going to be. Obviously, they're planning for, I believe, a fourth quarter release here in 2016.
Yeah.
But should anything go wrong, we obviously can't predict the future. There could be a fire. We never know. But what do we have what do we have to look forward to in the future? My goodness.
Well, pretty much what the game aims to be is a method of escape to a different world. And Richard Garriott has come out time and time again and said, even directly to his team, that it can be immersive enough. You need to be able to manipulate the world in even the tiniest of ways, even if it comes down to something as simple as removing a book from a bookshelf. You really need to pick and choose what you're going to do with this. They take all of these things and they give you the tools to have these grand adventures, and it's really kind of up to you in that sandboxy kind of way, but with the added benefit of being an MMO in a sense of the character progression and customization.
So, kind of in that same vein, then, Ant, what are some of the things you think that they're going to be coming out with over the next 6 months that you're looking forward to, excited about, or some things that maybe they haven't talked about or you haven't seen that you're hoping they might implement?
Honestly, it'd have to be more content, and it sounds weird because there's already a lot there. But in the sense of like the underworld, and by underworld I mean like sewers, crypts, and ruins. To me, it feels like music could be a little bit more ominous. So I think more soundtracks, in my opinion, might be coming out. Obviously more mobs, a little bit more area to expand under because I was over in, I think it was Owl's Head, and there's a lot of sewers over there and a lot of stuff. But the the area on the, I guess you could call it the mainland, the larger scale area, it doesn't seem to have much rooms and content. As far as above ground, there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's phenomenal. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I could expect, as well as PvP. I think they're gonna add a lot more PvP stuff next few months.
Definitely need to add some PvP stuff. I think we're having a little bit of technical stuff. Was that Ant, or is it just all of us in this room right now?
Everybody.
Well, that's unfortunate. We'll try and work through this. I think it'll get better here in a couple seconds. It's probably just DDoSing with some server, something like that. So next,
Oh
obviously,
no.
what we're going to try and work into here. And first of all, though, Agua, was there anything that you experienced in the game as far as just a general overview and something that really stood out to you, or something you're hoping they're going to add?
Um, I I don't know. I'm just playing the game was really fun, but I wanted it to be a little bit more destructive. I wanted to be able to like break down doors and stuff.
awfully violent coming from you there, Agua. So let's go ahead and work, I guess, into the audio visuals of the game. Obviously, we've kind of touched on that, but as you can kind of see here in the video that I've actually got playing, it's a really good looking game. And I don't think that this actually does it justice as you're seeing it actually being played on your monitor. This has obviously been downgraded from what I'm actually even seeing because it's being streamed live and recorded. But it is a very visually appealing game for me for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be hiccups here and there as it is early access, but it does look very good. And then the audio, for the most part, is absolutely incredible. So, Horse, if you want to go ahead and just elaborate a little bit upon that audio, because you did a really good piece, a little bit of a write up about it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, the audio is pretty good. I mean, there's not a lot of times where you can come into a game and feel like the audio alone takes you into the world, and I think they've done a really good job with that. Usually it takes all three aspects, you know, the interaction with the world, the viewing of the world, and listening to the world. And if you just close your eyes and listen to it, you really do feel like you're there. The rain is amazing. I myself grew up in a coastal town, and so I'm very used to hearing the sounds of the rain, and let me tell you, I felt like I was back home. So that's saying quite a bit. The Obviously it's still early access, so not all of the sound bites are in there. I think at one point we saw alligators barking at us and freaking cats barking at us. So obviously the bark is a placeholder audio bit, as well as a couple of other sound bites like the tomb uncoverings and stuff like that. They're all placeholder because they really only recently got their real sound effects guy hired on. So all that's going to be changing, but the stuff that was finished was really good.
So, and then obviously you've kind of touched on here with your saying the medieval stuff. So, kind of talk to me about a little bit with the imagery and the things you've seen in the game so far, Ant.
As far as imagery goes, like you'd stated, it's a beautiful game. The recording of a stream, may not do it justice, but as you can see, it's still captivating. In my opinion, night it seems like it's longer than day. Maybe I just get stuck in town longer than I should, but that it's overall just it's great. The waterfalls are beautiful. The only thing that it's missing, it's because it's early access. Once they get a little bit more visuals in there, like you'll see some mist and particle effects from the water. Right now, the water looks good and it's nice and all that, but once the little things get added, then it's gonna really make it pop. And as far as like the rain and the lightning, like the storm effects, it's all really well done. There's a lot of good flashes from the lightning. The sound of thunder is really it's not too far off. Sometimes it's a little bit far off. It's not the same every time. It's really good. There are a couple things that I think that need to be touched on. Like there's no colorblind mode. I have a couple friends who are colorblind, and they say the game's really kind of hard because there's a lot of levels of gray, and then there's a lot of reds, and reds are one of the things that people who are colorblind can't really tend to see. But other than that, it's beautiful. I don't really have too much negative things to say. It's just I can't wait until little things are added.
Well, you did mention at some point in the past, I can't remember exactly when, about some error textures or something like that.
Oh yeah, occasionally like this more leans towards bugs slash glitches. There's some areas of the maps where you'll be walking around and you'll just notice like a big gray wall. And you're like, whoa, what's that? Like world border? And it's like, oh no, you just get up closer to it, get up closer to it. Am I gonna fall out of the world? And then you walk through it and it's just more land. It's like, oh wow, there's a whole another part of the map here. Didn't realize that. But yeah, and I mean, it's alpha, it's early access. Can't really blame them for that. I think they got a world border cut too short,
Yeah, it's
and
still
there's
early
minor
access.
clipping through rocks. Yeah, and minor clipping through rocks. It's to be expected. It's only a
Agua,
couple spots, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times.
anything you want to bring up about the visuals?
Um, well, I think the visuals are really cool. I enjoy playing the game when I'm looking at my character. I mean, I'm looking at it obviously from a female perspective, so it's a little bit different. It's not like the typical like colorful type of game that you'd play. It's more like it has more interesting like depth and color of the real world. So I thought that was really cool. Um, but yeah, I there are a lot of cool things about this game. I love like the fire and the water aspects, like previously mentioned, and the swimming was kind of like interesting as well. How she kind of looks like a fish.
Yeah, the animations there, I don't think they're fully finished. In my opinion, you're half out of water. They're not totally submerged as you should be to the shoulder.
Yeah, stuff like that clearly that doesn't fit is quite likely placeholder, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, which it's early access. It's to be expected. It's like with no pooling of rain. When it rains, the rain is beautiful, but there's no pooling or little puddles on the ground. You know, just those minor things that have just yet to be added. It's not a negative aspect. It's just I can't wait until like these little types of things are added, like lightning strikes in front of you rather than just seeing the flash. You can actually
Yeah.
on the
One
ground somewhere out in front of you.
one thing that I was a little disappointed to see was that since I played as primarily a melee class, like I didn't really use magic or anything like that. I played the really hardy two-handed mace wielder, and
Mm.
I noticed that pretty much all of my abilities had the same animations, and I'm thinking those are just placeholder, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, how would you really expand upon that to make it look all that different? So I hope they take that
Yeah,
in a interesting direction and not just keep it simplified. I hope they actually make um, noticeably different animations for the different melee abilities because they are hard to do.
And then Synthel,
yeah.
obviously,
There's gonna be so many. Sorry.
it's fine. Obviously, being or at least my personal stream artist, what is your opinion on the visuals and the artistry of the game, or even audio if you want to touch on that?
Well, the game itself, the visuals are fantastic. I love them. I love the way that the stones look on the walls of that cavern that you guys are in right now for the video. The ground, the bearskin rug that's laying there, just the clutter, everything looks great. It doesn't look, it looks real. It's very, very immersive. And I love, my main thing is I love the fact that light sources in this game are actually present. Like you can create a sphere of light so you can see better. You can also turn on and off the lights. That lighting is my biggest thing. I love shading and colors. It the game looks fantastic. I even have to run it on low, and it looks great. I have to run it on the simplest settings, and when I had to when excuse me, sorry about that.
That's okay. I think I got what you're saying. You love obviously the lighting and all that kind of stuff, and then the fact that there's actually shadows involved, and
The
that
flames and the water,
yeah.
everything looks great. It's very immersive. I also looked at some of the houses, and while I was looking at the houses, I just was blown away about all the designs and styles you can go in. It's great. Everything's
Yeah, it
well
is. It
designed and well
really
created.
is.
So
The
To
only
go
next,
thing
off
I'd
the
like to
light
touch on with the
subject.
lighting
Oh,
go ahead.
is that fire elemental really needs to light up your life
Yeah, no,
because
yeah.
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, there are minor things obviously that I'm guessing are probably just yet to be added. The fire elemental is something that early on I thought actually was giving off some light, and I think it does a little bit, but it's just not enough to actually make a difference or even notice. But it is small things like that. I think maybe even having a thing in place like with the light orb that you summon, for example, that Synthel mentioned, the fact that it gives off a certain amount of light, maybe as you level the skill, gives off more light. Because there are parts where you, like, as me and Horse were going through these dungeons and stuff that are so dark, and you're struggling so much to see that having a more powerful light or another light source option, like a torch that gives off way more light or something, because you can't hardly see, and sometimes it gets very infuriating when you're looking
Yeah.
because, and we'll touch on this later, but the way the dungeons are interconnected, you're looking for these secret switches or a puzzle, and you're not sure what's happening, but you can't see well enough to find it, and it's frustrating. I mean, at the end of the day. So bleeding into the next thing here that something I really want to discuss because obviously I'm more of a PvP player when it comes to this kind of stuff, is going to be the PvP. And for me, I'm just going to be honest because I'm not someone that really likes to sugarcoat things too much. Obviously, want to put a positive spin on life in general. I'm a guy half glass, but the PvP in this is very small right now. The community itself is very small. They need to do more publicity, maybe. They need to do a better job of getting the game out there and letting people know about it because it has a lot of great qualities I think a lot of people would enjoy. I myself was really excited when I seen it, but not a whole lot of people have heard about it. There's not a whole lot of press that I've seen about it. And so I feel like if they did that, they could build a community, and maybe the PvP would then come up a little bit more. Because right now it's almost non-existent. We had one of our guys that's a part of the stream team that couldn't make it tonight, who I brought in to exclusively test the PvP with me. That went out looking to have these encounters and fight players and stuff like that, and he was unable to really find anybody. Now, part of that could be the fact that it's only the first week when we were doing these things after a wipe, and so maybe people aren't feeling very safe going out there yet, or even the necessity to. But the fact remains, there's not a whole lot of people that are really looking for that kind of encounter, from what I can tell from the community. And so that's something I feel like that they really need to work on and focus on, because the current elements of PVE are very good. The graphics look great, the audio is coming along, but they really need to bolster, for me, the player versus player kind of things. And I'm gonna go ahead and toss it to you really quick so we can get your opinion on that.
I mean, I'm not one for PvP typically. I'm generally the gatherer or just, the dungeon crawler type of guy, but I do like occasionally going out in matches and groups with friends and going out and stomping some people, and maybe getting my ass kicked and losing my shit. But yeah, as far as that goes, there's a lot of people that are super immersive with role playing, and the questing system in the game is all text based. So in order to gain any information, you're sitting there talking to NPCs and trying to understand, a lot of the lore, if you will, and just getting around and stuff. And it seems like you had said, people aren't really striving for PvP, maybe because of the wipe, but it almost seems that maybe because there's not as many zones for PvP or whatnot, that it's just not totally there. It's just maybe something that's yet to be added because they're just trying to get core gameplay and just the world itself finished. I don't know. It's an interesting subject to me, but that's just because I'm a PvE type of guy.
Well, yeah, but usually in a game, what you'll find is, like you said, you're the hunter-gatherer type. You'll find some sort of threat from players being out and gathering these, better materials or higher yield of materials in certain areas, and it creates conflict because it's sought after, right? And have you
Exactly.
experienced that at all in this game?
Not. I mean, not to an extent. There's been scenarios where I found a good area, and then I guess people have logged on and they've come to the same area and they've outgathered me. But as far as a sense of going into a PvP zone to like try to gather rare minerals or resources for gear or whatnot, I haven't extended out that far. And if that is the case, then because there isn't much PvP, then I really wouldn't feel worried. I guess there is a missing element there.
Yeah, that bit of suspense, that thrill of
Yeah, the thrill of knowing someone can take your shit.
Adrenaline. That's They have a lot of stuff in place for PvP, stuff that are cool concepts. They have an arena slash battlegrounds kind of setup thing going on, but nobody's using it. So maybe even adding some kind of incentive to PvP, or going into that arena, something along those lines, might bolster that a little bit, and I think would have some people stay rather than leave the game if that's where people are going. It might encourage people to be, more active in that. I mean, they have a really cool community. People are very tight knit here. I mean, they get along really well. If anybody gets toxic out in the PvP area by ganking people, generally the community will band together and get rid of them. It's fun and it's PvP. If someone gets out of line, though, they crack down on it pretty quickly. I mean, we've heard plenty of stories from our connection Phoenix there. But for me, if there's not a whole lot of incentive to do it other than the fact of doing it, people are gonna not really care to do it. I mean, for me, the combat is pretty fun. with PvP and fighting other players, it's pretty fun. It's the deck system they have in place where different attacks come up, and you can kind of see in the video here as things are dropping down and popping up on my 1 through 4. It adds an interesting element to that PvP, a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill, but it's not being used because no one's doing it. Um, Now, Horse, is there anything you want to elaborate more upon with the PvP here?
Well, I do
Say I
believe
got
that some of these issues would go away with the extension of the community, but at the same time, I feel like it's not really a priority for them because this game is really all about the immersion, not about the get out there and kill each other, such as other MMOs like World of Warcraft or even Elder Scrolls or any game that has a big focus on PvP. Um,
has a
so I,
matchmaking for it.
yeah, whereas this game really seems to put that stuff in the back seat, and they want to focus on the adventure, not the conflict or the rivalry.
I
And
mean,
that'll
it's maybe not even in that sense altogether because there is PvP. It just like you're saying, the community is pretty small, tight knit. So if someone gets out of, I guess you can say it, quote unquote, out of line and is becoming a raider and just preying upon everyone's resources, then it's just maybe not in place yet because once more people start getting into the game and that becomes a thing, then you're gonna have that PvP element where you're like, oh yeah, I want to go kill someone. We can go scope around in shard falls and try to get some noobs. But it's just the community's probably just so small at this point that they do a lot of PvP events. I've seen like people putting together tournaments and stuff for like dueling and stuff like that, which is awesome. But it'd be nice to see a little bit more large scale stuff.
Yeah, the open world stuff really feels like it's
Yeah, the
missing.
open world stuff, like going out to mine and then getting ganked by 5 dudes in the same guild, and they're like, "Oh, hey guys, come help me! I'm getting raided."
really brings that extra element of rivalry more so than what's already there now because everyone's so nice to each other. It's like playing a game of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You feel like you're gonna step on somebody's toes or something. It's if I don't have somebody to kill, I'm not happy, and that's just the way it is. And I feel like there's a lot of people that would share that sentiment with me, and it's kind of
Yeah,
negatively affecting the game in my opinion because this is a really good game. There's a lot of great things to like about it, but it's just small stuff like
the
that that
community
are
is
holding it back.
so nice.
Yeah, I mean
Well,
it really is.
I mean,
something.
I went to go get my Phoenix kill for that quest, and there
Oh
were
yeah.
like 5 people waiting to get theirs as well with a community, or a little community guy. He was like, "Oh yeah, I help people and just help them with the noob stuff, help learn the game." And he's like, "You want a Phoenix kill? You want a feather?" I was like, "Oh shit, hell yeah!" And we didn't end up having to do it ourselves.
Whereas in a
Super
typical
nice
MMO, that would
people.
be a point of conflict. It would be either you leave or you
Yeah,
die
yeah,
type thing. But
exactly, and that's the point we were at. It's like
that does
we'll
beg the
duel you for
question,
it.
and actually, it's something that Agua has recently brought up to me over the past couple of days. Is the risk versus reward system. So why don't you go ahead and field that one, Agua?
Oh, yeah. So I was
No
curious
pressure.
about the. Yeah, none at all. I was curious about the risk versus reward because it'd be really nice to conquer castles in the open world or something like that.
Yeah, I mean I gotta agree because with the fact you have the static housing, and this is something that I personally experienced with Ultima Online and kind of kind of hopefully no one gets upset with me here, but I did play on a private shard that wasn't pay by month, so I don't think I'm the only person that's ever done that before. But they did have that kind of thing, and there's other games that have it as well. Albion is the most recent one I can think of, where you might control a territory, a piece of land, a building, something like that, and through PvP, somebody can come take it from you. And so I feel like it really increases the value to you as the person owning it, knowing that you have to defend this piece of land, and it
Well,
again
the
adds an
um,
extra element.
the reward side of things for even the open PvP, my understanding is that when you kill someone, they drop 1 or 2 pieces of loot as well as a trophy. So like their jaw, their ear, their eye, something like that. And you can ransom it back to them for gold, or you can just keep it and use it. So, from my understanding, that is the reward that comes out of the open world side of the PvP, and not much else.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's essentially just your pride, not your loot. I was gonna say it'd be nice to like have player, or I guess it wouldn't be player owned towns, but like a steadfast slot that is out and about. That yeah, you could you can go pay for one or whatnot if they put that in the game eventually. Like you can just pay for deeds for houses or whatnot. But if you had like a steadfast out in the wilderness that people could fight over essentially like a territory and own that, you could have a town in the middle of fucking nowhere, which would be amazing. And that's
I
huge risk versus reward because that's putting a lot of time into deeds and then houses and cellars, and all that stuff, and then decorating.
Yeah, for sure. I think they've got a little bit in that direction in the sense of the control points, because we were given the information that after you successfully fend off the NPCs that come and try to hold these control points back from you, other players can actually come and attack you for them as well. Because anybody who pays to teleport through those zones, the money goes to you, as far as I know, like
Yeah,
the guild that owns it. Um,
yeah,
Now, while we never really paid for that option because it was fairly easy to just run on through, I can see how some people would, and that's a decent gold income once the community gets a little larger. But as it
oh for
stands right
sure.
now with the small community, that particular mechanic doesn't really work that way. But I get what you're saying. It would be nice to have something like that, but with a more customizability and more to commit and more to lose, basically.
Hmm.
so
Yeah, I
obviously,
think you can like leave those gates open too. From my understanding,
yeah,
that may have just been a little speculation around the forum, so you can like lock them off, close them, or like people have to pay or whatever. You can
it's
let
exactly
them
what you can
open the
do. You
gates
can
and
you
fight
can
the
open it for
mobs.
everybody, or you can shut it off to only your friends. I mean, it's either or, which is a cool thing to have. But I feel like either they're going to or they need to expand more upon that because there's not enough present right now for me with the PvP. But let's go ahead and move forward here, guys. I feel like we're kind of beating the dead horse at this point. No offense, horse. But
Yeah.
oh, good. Moving into the PVE stuff, and this is where this game really shines, in my opinion. The best part of the PVE stuff, I mean, outside of crafting, which we'll deep dive here in a moment, but is the underworld, as it's called by most people. The entire underneath dungeon area with all kinds of bosses, different quest lines, different treasure rooms, including Satan himself, as me and Horse have seen, um, is
Huh.
interconnected. So that means you literally could go into the sewers of one town randomly and then pop up 3 quarters across the other side of the map in some random wilderness out of another dungeon because they're all interconnected. Not only are they interconnected, there's hidden passageways. You actually have to look and earn it. I mean, the first time that I discovered this, I knew of a sewers in a nearby town, and I spent 30 minutes looking for this, way to get into the next stage. Finally, I did find it, and me and Horse, and this is the video you're seeing right now, that's us going through this dungeon that I found. And it started off when I went into it, at least, and I wouldn't say there's really a starting point. It's just whenever you want to enter it. We started in Arteris, which is one of the main towns, popped up inside of a newbie town nearby, resupplied and sold what we had, gotten our loot, if you will, and then we went back into it, and we popped up under, on the other side of some mountains nearby, quite a, great distance away from where we actually started. So this whole system of the interconnected dungeons for me is really exciting and fun. I've never heard of a game that's done this before, so it's really fresh and new for me. I don't know if it even exists anywhere else, but I'm liking what they're doing with that. Again, kind of an unfortunate leaning back towards the PvP. I'd like to have some PvP areas there so that as you're going through these dungeons, it's not necessarily always going to be safe. I don't know if they could maybe incorporate how they did with Ultima Online, where they have a standard world for PvE and then a PvP world, where if you're wanting to PvP, you go there, and that's where all that can happen. There's a lot of different ways to approach it, but I feel like if you're going in here for mobs, having that extra player element scaring you really adds again to the risk versus reward and the fun you can have down there. So go ahead, Agua. Have you? I mean, I don't know how much experience you've had being in these dungeons, but what is something you've seen as far as the underworld that you really liked and enjoyed, or that you would think they should change?
I actually have not been in any of the dungeons yet.
Is it because you're afraid of them, Agua? You can be honest with us. We won't judge you too much.
I'm so scared. So scared.
Well, Horse, obviously you've been down there with me yourself. So, what's something you've noticed about being in these dungeons that you really enjoyed?
Um, it can hit the fan very quickly. Um, if you get caught between like respawns or a boss, or if you take a wrong turn or can't remember your way out, it's it's gonna it's gonna be a bad time. But if you actually have a mind for like mazes and stuff like that, then you're gonna be all right. Um, Different stuff that you can discover down there is pretty cool. The different bosses and certain puzzles, and obviously what's in right now is only a fraction of what'll be in upon launch. But I feel like what I've gotten a glimpse of has been enlightening, because it gives me hope for the different types of things that they'll be implementing in the other areas, rather than just the starter dungeons, if you will. Now, keep in mind that when I shouldn't be saying dungeons, I should be saying sewers, or the underworld as they've come to call it, because the actual dungeons are much more difficult, and we actually haven't geared up enough to set foot in. But the underworld is quite compelling to explore, because there are different things down there for you to observe for everybody. There's different texts you could find, scrolls, hidden passageways, secret loot, all kinds of stuff. Even if you're just in it for the fight, there, like I said before, there's the bosses. So it's really worth exploring, and it's worth putting the time in to discover these secret passageways.
And you've obviously also been down in these dungeons and stuff. So, what are some of the things you've noticed that you've really enjoyed, or again, something you think maybe needs to be changed?
I mean, it's so good. I love how many more mobs are down there versus running around in the forest. Because, like Horse said, shit can hit the fan super fucking quick. Um, I don't know how to explain it. He pretty much covered it all. I mean, you can go from sewers. You're running around at what I would call a sewer height, and then you find a breakable wall if you have a pickaxe on you, which most of the time I don't, but luckily I got horse. So you break a wall down, and then it ends up being some little dirt tunnel, and it leads down lower, and you end up finding like a crypt level, and then or ruins, and it just goes deeper until you pop out somewhere in another sewer and or dungeon area, and it's just, I mean, it's great. There's multiple torch games, levers, breakable walls. There's a lot of ore I've noticed down there as well. The lighting for like lichen and any fungus has been great. There's a couple things that I think could be added. Textures, in my opinion, could have a little bit more detail, and I don't necessarily mean like the grain. It's more or less shadowing. Like I think there could be a little bit more darker lines, because I always run around with my light spell, and in my opinion, a little bit higher gamma than the average person. So I mean, I've tried turning it down a bit, but that light spell is really bright down there, and sometimes the lines can be too bright. In my opinion, needs to be just shadowed a little bit more. But other than that, I love it down there. I'd spend all day down there killing shit if I could. Luckily, luckily I've got the teammates to do that though, so it works.
And then, Synthil, I'm not sure how much time you spent down in the underworld or in the dungeons or anything, but what would you, again, would you say is awesome about it, or you just want to reiterate what everyone's already said? Would you change anything or add anything?
Sadly, like Agua, I haven't spent any time in the underworld. I've spent most of my time crafting and running around above ground trying not to die.
All right. Well, so on that note, then let's go ahead and head back into with crafting, as I mentioned earlier. They have a, I wouldn't say so much as cookie cutter approach to it. It does have some unique properties, but it's your standard. You get certain materials and you put them together. Now, the real big difference is there's a lot more involved in it. In some games, you have to wait until you're a certain level of crafting to actually craft something. With this, you have a chance at crafting it. Now, it doesn't use the materials you have per se. If you have, cotton, you're trying to make into cloth, it won't use the cotton. It doesn't use up the tool you make the cotton with. But it will use up the quote unquote fuel, which in cotton's case is called wax. So there's always a component that goes into this and a certain amount that you need to make it. And if you fail to make it, which at an early level, when you only have like a 7% chance, I guarantee you're going to fail quite often. But as you get more proficient, the more you craft and things like that, the more likely you are to craft it without any kind of issue. The problem obviously is going to be with if you craft the same item, and this is a cool thing I like, it doesn't give you as much experience the more you craft it. So you can't just make daggers all day and then get to level 100. You do have to mix it up a bit and actually, put
It's
the effort into
amazing.
learning the different kind of things. One fault I do think I would have with it is the difficulty it is finding out how to craft certain things. You can buy recipes for most stuff, but there are a few things that there are no recipes for, and you have to either lean on the community to find it out as a group, which is a cool feature, or you have to just trial and error. And the problem with that is it literally takes exact amounts to craft things. So you can't put 100 of something into your crafting bar and then hit craft and have it happen. It has to be the exact amount. So with that level of trial and error, obviously it can be a little frustrating at times. One of our good friends, Blue, he has spent I don't know how long trying to craft certain items very unsuccessfully. And again, there are places you can go to buy the recipes for them, but with the way the towns are now, not everything is even keel. You do have to travel sometimes literally across the world to get the right recipe for the right item. So, Cynthia, if you want to go ahead and just elaborate a little bit upon your experience with crafting, let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, if I've missed anything in the overview.
Well, I really enjoyed crafting to the degree of I mostly focus in alchemy, and whenever you think of alchemy, you usually think of just potions and bombs and random stuff. But you actually can do gem crafting with alchemy, and that's pretty fun. Pretty interesting style. I'd really like if they expanded a bit more upon their alchemy. Like got a very limited recipe list at the moment, and since it takes exact amounts to make anything or discover anything, I find it very frustrating to um, find any recipes because I still haven't found any more than the regular recipe or just the haste potion, the poison, etc. Uh, but I did like the fact that you can rely on other people. Like I don't have to go and gather um, all of the corpse dust I need for my health potions. I can rely on my cohorts to help me mine up by killing a bunch of undead just to get corpse wax, and I can rely on horse. I actually mostly rely on horse for my gemstones. I can turn them into jewels and specialized gems for jewelry, so that he can wear that, and I can put it on his armor, etc. It's a lot of fun. Uh, I the only thing I found that alchemy kind of lacks in every other crafting system it seemed uh, involved itself with another crafting system. Alchemy kind of sits out on its own at the moment. It kind of doesn't really stick with anything. It's mostly finishing touches with most things.
Well, the taming collars I noticed those were part of the alchemy, and they actually pulled from pretty much every other craft, didn't they?
Yeah, the taming collar and the taming whistle base and the summoning whistle basically went through a bunch of crafting uh, types before it gets to alchemy. That's the only thing. That's literally the only recipe that requires someone else grabbing stuff. You can go mine your own gemstones.
Yeah, I mean, like with tailoring, obviously making clothes and stuff like that. It does require for anything above just very bare basic stuff, having somebody that can mine and smelt, or at least smelt certain things for you, or blacksmith, what you want to call it, in order to make the middle to higher tier items. And so I think I know what he's saying is that basically there's not a whole lot in his crafting that requires any kind of assistance for anybody. So it's a very soloable craft and kind of goes against the grain of what they've been doing with the other crafts. Now, horse,
Yeah,
obviously,
maybe.
go ahead.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Ann.
I was gonna say maybe add like a jewelry, like rings or whatnot. So you'd require jewels and metal bands or something like that, or some form, something necklaces or something or other.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. That
That
would
way
be
you're
one
not
feature.
just using one component all the time.
well, we were able to make
A little bit more.
a ring of Gaiaism, which required me to make a Gaiaism jewel, and then Horus presented me with a ring, and I was able to make a ring of Gaiaism. But
He took it the
other
wrong way at first, though, so it was kind of awkward.
oh, Horus, I never knew you felt that way.
The betrayal. So Horace, obviously you've spent quite a bit of time down in the mines mining. I stood there and watched you do it the entire time, much to my chagrin. But elaborate upon that for us as far as your experience with the actual gathering and then processing and crafting of items and the things you've seen and how you would either improve or what you really enjoyed, and just give us an idea of what you experienced.
Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so I love the crafting gathering aspect of games. It is probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about, and unfortunately, it's one of the things that I am most let down about, most often let down about. Now, in this particular case, you've got um, gear that needs to be crafted and sold to players on a consistent basis. And these pieces of gear require a lot of materials because they're useful and you don't craft them very often for the same person. So the turnover rate is not very high, but you need to craft a lot of them because a lot of people need them. So that being said, you need to gather materials like a madman. And I spent probably 12 hours over the course of 2 days in the mines, mining nothing but iron and copper and crystals. Now, I wasn't really involved in the game at this point because I would just turn on something to watch on Netflix on my second screen and run around and collect ore and stuff while I was, watching Mad Men or whatever was on at the time.
Such a good show.
And I felt really distant, and it broke my immersion, and it made me sad because the game does such a good job at bringing you into this world in pretty much every other aspect of it. And then you get to the part where it's time to go harvesting, and it's like you're not there. You're disconnected now. So what I have suggested time and time again, and I feel would do really, really well, is an interactive gathering / crafting system. Some sort of mini game, or the things like Surgeon Simulator, for example, where you could, like, say, move your pick around the mining node and hit certain chunks of rock out, and if you hit the actual valuable ore, you got less ore from the node, but if you actually carved it out perfectly, then hey, you actually get a decent yield. And it would take away from this chance system that I really feel is not only unfair but not fun. The fact that I can walk up to something that has a 3% chance for me to successfully mine it and spend 2 hours not getting the single node, meanwhile my skill level's up, yes, even on failure, but somebody else can come along and try once and get that node, even if I've been sitting there crafting or harvesting these nodes for 3 days. They just get lucky and they got their stuff and walk out. So I feel that rather than rewarding the time you spend doing that, I feel it takes away from the dedication that you put into that certain aspect. And I feel that if you were to implement certain types of these mini games or interactive harvesting methods, that people would value the gatherers more, the gatherers and crafters more, as well as put more of a focus on it so that it's actually viewed as a real class, like a real valuable thing to do. And it would make it more interactive. It would engage you because no other game out there has crafting systems like that, and it's really an untapped potential in games nowadays, and it makes me sad that nobody's doing it. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see maybe not that specifically, but something that makes gathering / crafting more engaging.
Definitely agree with you there.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can elaborate on that a little bit because I mean, I can vouch too. While Sauce stood there for a day while he did it, you know, the couple days beforehand when he wasn't really into the combat of the game or whatnot, I was like, "You want to do some dungeons? You want to go kill some stuff?" I was like, "I'll heal for you if it gets too chaotic," because I was going through as like a holy priest build, killing stuff and healing. It was like, oh, I'm so distanced. So I went to gathering and crafting, and it's like, well, you may think, oh, go to a lower level area, so you have a 100% chance to get a node. Yeah, that's true. You also get less resources. The higher level areas give you a little bit more resources, and there's also a little perk to passive in the skill tree that the higher that skill gets, the more resources and the better chance and stuff that you get to actually obtain the resource that you're trying to gather, whether it's wood, cotton, what have you. The higher areas are always going to give you better stuff and a higher yield. So it kind of sucks that you're just stuck sitting there watching a progress bar in a sense or a loading screen, and that's the one flaw. Other than that, I mean, I love the crafting and gathering concept as well. It's phenomenal. It needs to be a tiny bit more interactive so that it could be a tad bit quicker so you can regroup and reform, because like Horse stated, it's so immersive. The game is so fun, even by yourself, but even more so with people, that it sucks to distance yourself for hours on end in the mines, just picking away at rocks or hacking away at trees out in the wilderness.
Yeah, you definitely
Little tear.
feel like a little kid who's like not allowed to go out and play because you have to. Can Timmy
It's
come
like,
out and
all
play
right,
today?
Billy,
No, he's working in
go
the
chop the
mines.
trees. We need firewood. It's time to get firewood for winter, but it just turned spring. Yep. Gotta stock up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like it's I wouldn't even say like it's this game's fault or it's like they're not trying something. It's
No,
no game is
absolutely
really
not.
doing that. No one's really trying to innovate the crafting. It's just trying something that's been done 1,000 times before with obviously a different spin on it. It's its own beast, but it's still in the same family of beasts. And that's something I would really like to see as well. Agua, what kind of experience have you had with the crafting so far?
User joined your channel.
Well, basically, although I didn't really do any crafting, I did try to get into it. Um, I felt it was really difficult trying to naturally understand the concepts of the crafting in the game without having to go to the internet as a reference. I would have liked to see some like NPC storyline wrapped in the crafting so that I could like adapt to it a little bit better. However, I felt like it was a really important aspect of the game because I was running around. I noticed players allowed other players to use their crafting stations and things like that.
I hate to break your heart, there actually is a quest line that you probably just didn't discover that actually does walk you through the basic crafting, at least for cotton and cloth and stuff like that. You probably just didn't. That's one of the cool things about this game too, is that for the quests and stuff, you have to go to NPCs randomly, more or less, and just try to chit chat with them, see if there's any kind of keywords you can use to trigger something. It's still early in the development for that, but they're expanding upon it as they go, but there's definitely opportunities like that. Agua just it's again they don't. That's something they could do better. Is kind of explaining that this is how the game is going to be. You need to talk to people and you have to interact with them to get these quests. So I feel like it wasn't really so much as you not finding it, so much as it wasn't easily presented to you. If that makes sense. Because it's something that really
Yeah.
would have helped you explaining how to go about crafting and how to get started, where to go in the early beginnings of that particular thing. And it looks like we actually have Zeal here. He's a little bit late, but it's okay. We won't fault him for that. Stuff happens. Did you have anything you wanted to add about the crafting, Zeal?
I was just impressed about how in depth it was and how much you actually had to put into it to get items that have these hidden powers basically that you unlock that there's no indication of, like, hey, keep crafting and something will come out. It's just by chance you get it, and it's pretty awesome.
So that pretty much sums up the basic core concepts of the game for us. I do want to kind of go through everybody and ask you, is there anything we didn't talk about, discuss? Obviously, the entire time most of us were taking notes and going over things. For me, something I don't think we really covered is with how much there is in the world right now. There's a lot of different areas to explore. There's a lot of cool things like player bought and owned cities where you design the layout of the city, you put what goes where. People have to come to you to see about getting a house there if they want to have a house. There's a lot of really cool features and stuff that we just haven't gone over. So there's anything that we haven't mentioned that you want to discuss?
Actually, I believe he's had to step away for a
Oh,
moment.
okay. Well, then I'll go ahead and toss it to you, Horse. And one last thing is, I don't know if anyone's going to talk about this, but they really do seem to listen to people in the community and at least explore the options that are being presented from them. And what I mean by that is, for example, someone was talking about with the instruments and stuff like that, that they wanted to have kind of a, I guess, Lord of the Rings approach to it where you could play certain music and play with other people and actually have like a band and interact in that way and really get more immersive with it. And so they said, sure, we'll look into that. Well, someone went ahead and took the initiative to create a program for the game where you could actually, using your keyboard, play instruments and play notes and stuff. And then obviously, then put into that some kind of file that would play a song. I'm not sure about the exact details, and maybe Horse could elaborate that, but it's a really cool thing that this person made this and they liked it so much they actually incorporated it into the game. So it's actually a part of the game now where you can walk up, sit down, and start playing a piano or playing a different instrument or work with friends to actually play songs together. My first experience with them doing that was actually there was a guy playing "Sweet Child of Mine" in one of the random taverns on the piano, and it sounded really good. It sounded like a piano. It was just a really cool immersive thing to have there. And go ahead, Horse. I've talked long enough.
Well, the music system in the game is very, very similar to that of Lord of the Rings Online. I don't know if anybody else here has played it, but typically what you can do is just get together with your friends, and there's different commands to either play solo or play with a group. And as long as you have the proper files in your music folders, you'll be able to play the same song. It's a great system. It makes for amazing RP, and it was put in the game, or actually made ready for the game, by a fan, not even one of the developers. It was done by a person from the community, so that's just a testament to show how tight knit and supportive the community actually is. Now,
Go ahead.
oh no, please.
I was just saying, was there anything else that we haven't really discussed yet that you wanted to bring up or at least highlight about the game?
One thing that I really wanted to make known is that it is a quote unquote hardcore game. Now, what that means is that it takes a lot of time to really do anything. If you're playing for an hour a day, you're really not going to see any progress, and it's really going to seem like there are these impossible hurdles to get over. Now, that's even more so with the skill degradation system and whatnot. So it's really for people who aren't, I don't want to say aren't looking for an MMO to play, but I want to say it's for people who really enjoy getting into a new world, because that's essentially what they've gone and built, or in the process of building. It's not really just a game to drop in and play. It's another world to escape to, and it's really nice. I'm a fan of that, because I've always felt that games are something that you play in order to escape from reality, because there's certain things that you just can't do. Like, just because I strap on a cape and go jump off my roof, I can't fly around like Superman. It doesn't work like that. So
You sure?
if I want to, tried, and I can tell you for certain that it does not work.
Fine.
But it is a really all-encompassing world, and it's got the self-driven content just like real life, actually, because anything you do in life is because you want to, or you feel like you have to. Now that carries over into this game. You need to be self-motivated. even if it only goes as far as talking to NPCs. And that adds a certain charm, but I think in the end it's going to prove too difficult for the average gamer or the younger gamer, just because they're not quite so experienced or well versed in that. And some people don't really have the drive. They're looking for the drop in. Tell me what I got to do, and so I can go and do it. And that's not here. That's not what this game is about. This game is about you being in control. It's about you deciding what you want to do, and it's about you shaping your own adventure.
It's about me. So yeah, is there
And I was
anything?
gonna say to
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually going to say to reiterate on that before Hugh had even mentioned that this is, quote unquote, a hardcore game. I was going to say, with everything that we've said, and I guess what we've, nitpicked, or I guess you could say what we want to be easier. It's not that we want it to be easier. This game is not catered to Care Bears. It is, like Horse said, it's more in line for someone who wants to learn. You're dropping into a world. You're not dropping into a game. It's not even dropping in. You're walking into something else. You're going into this game with should go in with no expectations because you're gonna go in and have to like learn stuff. It's all text based. You're not gonna quest dialogues. You have your journal. It keeps track of important things, but if little minor details like people's names, sometimes like locations, not everything's recorded. So it's definitely something that if you're wanting to get involved and basically get sucked into something and immerse yourself into a world, like it's perfect for that. And with everything that we have said, I'm not downing the game. I'm not, none of those statements were negative. Those are just like all points that I think that could be added, or hopefully they're going to add. It's a phenomenal game. It's just for someone who wants to take the time to play it and get the reward for playing it for a while. You can be there for building your skills for all these different trees, and it's going to take time. You're not going to get instant gratification out of killing one mob. You're not going to level up super fast. It's going to take time and effort, and once you've reached where you want to get to, you're going to feel great about it. I got my skills up to 100. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, I can finally hit shit without missing as much. I'm doing moderate amount of damage. Feel powerful. This feels great. I haven't played in a couple days, so I don't know how far my skills drop, but that's the sacrifice. Like if you just like, oh, I'm gonna stop playing, well, your skills are gonna start decreasing, and that is phenomenal. I love it. It's an amazing game, and I can't wait to see what they have in store.
Is there anything else you want to touch on that obviously you're just now coming into this that maybe you think we haven't talked about already?
I just think overall, the reward that you get when you get to a point, when you set a goal, crafting. The goal is to get an item that procs with those extra stats on them, and when you finally get that, it is such a great feeling, and it's a great reward. I love the fact that the game isn't so centered around your gear that if you don't have that gear, you won't go anywhere. I would say it's more 80% your skill level and 20% your gear, and that's not something you see in a lot of games now. And I think that just brings a fresh feel, a newer look than, hey guys, we have to go grind this, T17 dungeon to get these pieces to do the next dungeon, to possibly get a piece from the last dungeon. And I'm glad that they stepped away from that aspect of the MMO scene.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
it really
gotcha.
feels old school dungeon crawler esque, where it's more so, like you said, skill based. Like, not to say exactly Diablo 2, but like if you played Diablo 2 on like Elite or Hardcore, it always seemed like you were two gear levels, or you were two steps under the boss at all times. So you're always having to kite stuff, run around, have enough potions, do this. It was always somewhat strategy based, and you can definitely get away going into the five skull areas with lower level gear if you got a couple heals, a couple stuns, you work your sprint, definitely, which is phenomenal. 100% agree.
Agua, anything that we maybe haven't touched on that you want to make sure we go over?
Not really. No.
All right. Well, unless anybody else has anything else, anyone?
I do.
No, I think we
One
pretty
thing
much.
that we haven't stated,
Go ahead.
Runic,
Oh,
amazing.
yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Runic is amazing. It is not as hard. Like when I was like, "Oh, you should learn Runic." People were like, "Oh, fuck that." I was like, "No, it's simplified. It's their own Runic and it is phenomenal to read and write and it is very easy to learn." I haven't turned there's settings to turn on, the regular English names or whatever regular names underneath the Runic names. Screw that. It's awesome. And the books are amazing too.
The cool thing that me and
Guy.
Horse experienced with it, we were in a dungeon and we felt like there might be something secret there, and so we were checking walls and checking chambers and looking in tombs and stuff. And there was this one lone, I guess you would call it maybe a memorial. It was just there was
Yeah.
a tomb obviously with bodies and stuff, and so there was runic written on it, and we spent a good 2-3 minutes actually deciphering what it said, trying to see if it meant anything and what it elaborated towards, and we couldn't figure out what it actually was pertaining to, but that was kind of the mystique of being in the underworld. You kind of reiterate that is that you are down there looking for secrets and things that are hidden and looking for treasures, and you don't know what you're going to run into, and they're going to have things that do lead to stuff like, again, you find the spawn of Satan, a Balrog or whatever it is, or sometimes you just find a random tomb that really doesn't have anything to give you. But you never know. You have
Or
to
the
actually
Lich
look.
King.
Yeah, yeah. You have to actually look through and see what's there to be found. Were you gonna say something, Horse?
Um, I was just gonna say, like, I actually translated a few of the texts that we found during our expeditions from Runic to English, and some of them just turned out to be random folk tales, and others turned out to be actual like short stories. So if you're interested in the language, then there's definitely something there for you. Like there's bound to be books that lead to artifacts like weapons of power or even hidden bosses or give you clues as to how to open up secret passages. Like there's the possibilities are endless, and I'm sure there's either already stuff in there like that or there will be a wealth of things like that in there later on.
There are a couple books I have read that have like hinted towards like things. I don't know if they were just short stories or not, but for anyone that already has the game or is thinking about getting it, the Tower of the Shuddering Eye is the place you want to go if you like reading. Find that and you will be in heaven.
Yeah, we actually talked about that with Phoenix, and he told us that that place used to have an amazing treasure room, which is part of the reason right now the game currently doesn't have a whole lot of loot available. They're still balancing that, and that treasure room was just so full of stuff, and people were hitting it so hard they had to back it down because it was being overly looted, I guess you could say. But there are a number of texts that are actually in place for telling you to go to the Tower of the Shooting Eye. They're texts that you have to decipher or find and read that lead you towards quest lines and stuff. So it's definitely worth actually
Yeah,
cracking open a book.
yeah, and that place is full of books. Full of books.
All right, guys. Well, I think that takes us to the end of this week's or this day's episode, at least of the Pixel Gurus. We're probably gonna do another episode here later on in the week, covering some other games and content, discussing news and just general shenanigans when possible. Thank you everybody for watching, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.